السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه أما بعد. Good evening and welcome back. Hopefully everybody's doing well. Um, we're continuing our discussions on the obstacles to living with heartfulness. Hopefully tonight will be the last topic regarding obstacles, and then we can move on to talking more about what constitutes heartfulness and ultimately then ways of developing heartfulness in our lives. So last week we spent some time deconstructing some notions, some modern notions of authenticity. We spoke about inner sense authenticity, the idea that to be authentic means I need to discover this inner core self. I need to remove all the layers of performative living from that core. And when I finally get to that core me, I'll finally be authentic. And we also spoke about a constructionist idea of authenticity, the idea that for us to live authentic lives, we have to construct such a life. We have to come up with what we deem to be authentic and important and then live according to that. The main issue with both of these ideas is that both are self-referential. Both anchor the concept and the notion of authenticity in one's own subjective perspective. And that is to be expected from a secular perspective and secular lens, because it cannot be, from that lens, it cannot be anchored in the divine, in anything sacred, because that goes against the very spirit of secularism. And we occupy a world dominated by a secular worldview. So last week we briefly made reference to how in the Islamic tradition, if we were to speak about authenticity, what would be the major difference? We spoke about a concept in Arabic known as sidq. Sidq is often translated as truthfulness. It can be translated as sincerity. And I'm going to introduce another translation, integrity. But ultimately, sidq has to do with aligning oneself with the truth. And the truth with a capital T. Not the truth that I believe in, not the Oprah Winfrey speak your truth idea, where everybody has their own truth. It's all subjective and relative. No. As Muslims, we believe there is a truth with a capital T, objectively something to be true. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is al-haq. One of his names is the real, the reality. And so it's not a matter of aligning myself with my desires. Right? I have all these desires, I have all these passions. So authenticity, in the modern notion of inner sense authenticity would be, let me align my way of being in the world with those desires and passions. And the idea is if I go against my desires and passions, I'm not being authentic. And the proof that I'm not being authentic is when I suppress my desires and passions, that I feel so flat. Now, if those desires and passions are haram, then definitely one has to suppress them. If they are halal, then they don't necessarily have to be suppressed. And actually suppressing those halal passions and desires can lead to some, they have health repercussions on your well-being overall. So the point being, if we want to think about it from an Islamic lens, it is about aligning ourselves, prioritizing what is true and real. And then aligning our inward with our outward. And so we could broadly speaking, think of three main components here. There's my inward state of being. There's my outward state of being. And then there's the truth. And there has to be this alignment. Why am I externalizing this concept of truth? Because I'm trying to highlight how it's not subjective. It's not what I think it is or what you think it is. The truth is the truth with a capital T. From the Islamic lens, the opposite of such authenticity would be hypocrisy, where my inner does not align with my outward. Or I have something that's inward and outward, but it does not align with the truth. So I want to now focus on one translation of the word sidq for us to explore authenticity. And that's the word integrity. This concept lies at the core of so much of our growth. It lies at the core of so much of our well-being. It really forms the foundation of our character, our personality, everything, who we are. This concept right here. So the word integrity, being used as a translation for sidq, it comes from the Latin root meaning to be whole, to be complete. And it shares roots with another word in English, integrate. When we think of integrating, what do we think of? When you integrate things, to join them, suggesting that they're apart. And I'm going to bring them all together. And hopefully if I bring all of the necessary pieces, it'll become whole and complete. If I leave out a piece, and I don't integrate all the necessary pieces, what I have will not be complete. It won't be whole. It'll be deficient. So, integrity in a person's character, in a person's being, involves bringing all parts of myself together to form a complete whole in alignment and in harmony. So what's an example of not having that harmony? And hopefully as we go through this, it starts to become more apparent how it's possible for someone to be torn between different parts. So you could have a Muslim who believes in La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. They are convinced intellectually that Islam is true and Allah is worthy of worship. They don't have any intellectual doubt about Islam. Like they're not doubting the veracity and the truth of the religion. Yet, they find themselves sinning and succumbing to impermissible passions and desires. What's going on here? And we often get puzzled. We're like, wait, this is like a practicing Muslim who prays, who does all these things, and then they do this? And really that's a sign of a lack of understanding human nature. You know, when we're young, we expect people to be consistent and coherent. No? We expect people to be consistent and coherent. And that's just not how humans are. That is just not how humans are. Ideally, we make an effort to become consistent. But it's not difficult to understand that people could be actually totally out of alignment. So, example, someone who, is intellectually convinced of Islam, And yet, they commit sins. How do you make sense of that? Is this person a good Muslim or not? Right? Well, that's the question we want to label it somehow. Good or bad. There's no need to label it. What if we just accept this person is torn between competing forces? Maybe they're not actually proper Muslims. No, why? Because this suggests that their intellectual beliefs of Islam are not valid? Are you following me here? Because you're not just a brain and an intellect. You're not just an aql. You have a nafs. You have a nafs. You have a part of you that seeks pleasure, that's appetitive. And it's not always subjected to the intellect. So a part of you knows I shouldn't do this, but then that desire wants to do it, and you're torn. And so the war of goodness and integrity takes place in the heart of every human. This is not just hypocrisy, right? This is just lacking. This is a lack of having integrated one's desires into this individual's submission to the truth. Does this make sense? So you can have a person where some parts of them are aligned with the truth, while others continue to lag behind. Do y'all get that? Because we are not just one being. Like, we're not just one part. No, we have multiple faculties. And I aim to explain this, inshallah, when I get into heartfulness. Because heartfulness is to live from your entire being. You don't shy away from your nafs because you're scared that your nafs will run wild. No. You embrace the nafs. You discipline it and you embrace it, because through your nafs you can enjoy life in a halal way, through your nafs. Ours is not a religion of take all the fun out of life. But our issue is often the nafs is out of control. So not only do we try to have fun, but we go beyond the limits. And we end up harming ourselves. Which is why Allah gave us an intellect. And a person can be torn. That's why one writer, he said, we not only need to have tawheed of one's beliefs, we need to have tawheed of our psyches. What does tawheed mean? In Arabic, from wahada yuwahidu tawheed, it means to make one. You take a multiplicity and you make it into one. Tawheed is to look at the universe and you see multiplicity, different creatures, different creations, totally, they look different, they are created and built differently. You have humans, you have animals, you have insects, you have day and night, you have planets, you have water, you have trees, you have all of this. But that multiplicity is explained and accounted for by one being who created it all. It has to. That's tawheed in your beliefs. But you need to also create tawheed within your psyche. It is not enough for merely your intellect to be convinced of the truth of Islam and understand submission to Allah. You have to also integrate your nafs. Discipline it and integrate it. Otherwise, it'll wage war. And you'll constantly be torn between, I know what the right thing to do is, but my nafs won't let me. I know I need to get up for Fajr, but my nafs won't let me. I know I should say no to this, but my nafs deeply wants it. And you're like, what kind of a Muslim am I? Like, I go to the halaqas and I learn this and I attend this program and this conference and I listen to the YouTube lectures and I go in Ramadan and I come from a family of people who do all this. So intellectually, I know. I don't doubt Islam at all. My nafs is not integrated. So I walk around torn. Some of us, we grew up spiritually convinced of the religion. We felt so good praying. We felt good being in the masjid. but we were not intellectually convinced of our religion. We went to school, we were learning scientific theories. We're like, man, this makes so much sense. And a voice in your head said, but hold up. If you accept this, how are you going to continue to hold on to your Islamic beliefs? Because the two don't necessarily align here. Here we're saying we have to use the scientific method, which is based on empiricism, observation. You can't see God. How do you know he exists? Can you falsify that hypothesis? How do you do it? So now you have this intellectual edification, this education coming your way that's completely divorced from God. And you have the spirituality on this side that feels really good, like it feels meaningful. What do you do then? The moment you start to try to intellectually engage with these ideas, you feel really cornered, like, it's a good point. I don't know how to argue against that. And I don't know, like, maybe let me go ask my Quran teacher, what does Islam say? Astaghfirullah. How dare you ask that question? What, are you becoming atheist? And you're like, okay, fine. I guess I don't ask questions. Allah said, just accept it. Okay, I'll just accept it. So now you go back to praying, but a part of you feels like, man, I don't know if we have any answers to these questions. This whole Islam thing is it's just a leap of faith. Just accept it, believe it, because it kind of makes you feel good, and my family does it, so I don't want to be excommunicated from my family and from my community, so just go on worshiping. But I'm not really convinced intellectually. Do you get it? Spiritually, I'm motivated. I love to listen to that scholar when he speaks. I feel good being around Muslims, sure. But if someone asks me, how do you know Islam is true? Let's not talk about that. Do you get it? Do you not feel that individual will struggle with their identity as a Muslim? A part of them will always feel like, but hey, you don't even know if this whole thing is true. Oh, it feels good to pray Maghrib. Nice. Is it actually going to benefit you? And you're like, of course, Allah Ta'ala loves when we pray, and in the akhirah. How do you know there's an akhirah? Astaghfirullah, shaitan. I can't address this. Are you with me? The intellect lags behind. The spirituality rises. There's a war within. Are you following me? A human being can be torn between different forces. And to integrate them all, to say, you know what? No, my religion does have answers. And I'm not going to shy away from asking those questions to make sure that I am convinced that this religion is the truth. And absolutely, there is a rich and deep intellectual Islamic tradition. Absolutely. A Muslim should not be shamed for asking these questions, because that is the path to developing certitude and conviction. But at the same time, you can't neglect your spirituality. You have people who are intellectually convinced, like I said, but spiritually very weak. And so they can present tremendous and fantastic arguments on behalf of Islam. And yet their character does not reflect the beauty of Islam. Because they've not made an effort to really align that part of themselves, their character, with their belief system. And so we need tawheed of our psyches. Does that make more sense now? Of how we could be torn? And it confuses us, right? It confuses us because we're like, Hafiz of Quran and doing that? Where's hijab and does that? Because we expect consistency. We expect that every aspect of them will be aligned. Not at all. Why? I've talked to people and they didn't understand themselves. They were like, Shaykh, like, I pray, I do all these things, but like I also do all of this. I don't know. No, I don't question Islam. I don't doubt Islam. I'm convinced. But I don't know why I end up doing this stuff. Am I a good Muslim? I don't know. I feel like a bad Muslim. It's so fascinating, right? Trying to make sense of this war within. Scholars long talked about. Imam al-Ghazali, he said that your hereafter will be determined by who wins on the battlefield of war between good and evil in your heart. In your heart. And we don't even know there's a war going on. We feel the chaos. We don't know where it comes from. So we just blame it on shaitan and blame it on other things, right? Blame it on our surroundings. Blame it on university and education, astaghfirullah, how that corrupts Muslims' minds. We look for every scapegoat because we don't understand the inner turmoil. So what would integrity look like? A person of integrity would have complete alignment, having integrated everything. You know, if you've been shamed for any one part of you, you will not integrate it. You'll reject it. So if you asked a lot of questions to try to achieve intellectual satisfaction, but you got shut down because astaghfirullah, how could you question that? How could you ask about the age of the Prophet's wife when he married her? Astaghfirullah. How could you ask that Islam allows this one practice? And you didn't receive the answers. Likely you concluded either Islam doesn't have answers, or two, that's a flaw of mine to ask the questions, so I need to stop asking questions. And so you don't integrate that intellect side of you when it comes to Islam. And it's very common. You see people who are deeply intellectual in their fields, but when it comes to Islam, like nothing. Like they are really good at what they do at work because they're able to ask questions, get answers. They're really smart people. When it comes to religion, nothing. No intellectual grounding. So it's almost like we're living schizophrenically, where I have this one side of me that's super intellectually developed, and I have this religious side of me that's just no intellectual development, just spirituality and vibes. All right? So we have this way of being. If you had passions, desires, and you were shamed for them, you would reject them. You would see them as a flaw. I'm flawed. You know, you were 16, you were 17, you went to, or 14 even, and you went to your mom or your dad and you said, hey, this is really, I really like this one person in my class. Like, astaghfirullah, you evil person, you immoral person, how could you, da. And then, and you can't talk about your desires and passions, and you're just like, okay, astaghfirullah, like I'm evil for even feeling it. For feeling any desire. Desire becomes evil. And so you suppress that and reject that. Right? I mean, I've spoken to people, and they told me how it's time to get married, but they don't know how to bring up the topic. They feel disgusting for bringing it up to say, Mom, Dad, I want to get married. Because it's almost like, Mom, Dad, I desire companionship and intimacy of the opposite gender. And it's like, how do I even say that? It feels so dirty. Subhanallah. It is a sunnah practice in our religion, and it feels dirty. So what the individual will do when they bring it up the first time and gets shut down, suppress that. Act like I don't have that. And if they ever feel anything, astaghfirullah, shame on you, you really evil, immoral person. Astaghfirullah. Be a good Muslim. So they don't integrate that. And you cannot just exile parts of you and go through life in a healthy manner. You can't do it. And so, integrity is to integrate it all. Bring it all together. So what might guide this to ensure that it's aligned in a healthy manner? It's to ultimately have it all in alignment with the truth. And that's why Allah revealed the Quran and sent the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He lived a life that was whole and holistic and complete. He did not shy away from intellectual conversations, nor did he shy away from discussing matters of desire and passion, nor did he ignore spiritual practice. the spiritual dimension. He didn't ignore it at all. Incorporated and integrated it all. So, in each of our lives, the foundation of integrity has to be a clear understanding of what our purpose is in life. Not a theoretical understanding, not a Sunday school answer of why we exist, but a deeply rooted conviction that I am here today, and I've been here, and I will be here tomorrow to serve this purpose. What is that purpose? That purpose will determine whether I am successful in life or not. Because if I do everything but the purpose, I'm a failure. And if I fail on many other things, but I'm successful in my purpose, I'm ultimately successful. What's your purpose? What is the truth of why you exist? How do you know that that is actually your purpose? Are you convinced that that actually is your purpose? Is that what your parents just told you? Or have you really investigated that this is why I'm here on earth? When you determine what your purpose is, then you will have a value system. Because things will take on value in proportion to how much they are able to fulfill the purpose. In proportion to their ability to help fulfill the purpose, things become valuable, and so we develop a set of values. Those values will inform the goals that we make to fulfill our purpose, our daily, monthly, yearly goals that we have, our 5-year goals, 10-year, 15, 20, 50-year goals, all which serve that ultimate purpose. Now, these are broad goals. So what you need daily behaviors that will ensure that you actually achieve those goals. And your daily behaviors form, or the baseline for your daily behaviors are your daily habits. And imagine your daily behaviors and habits align with your goals. And your goals are in line with your values. And your values are in line with your purpose. Now you have alignment. And all of this is in alignment with the truth. The Quran is the truth. It tells us why we exist. That we are here to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That every one of us is a servant of God. That is not merely a label. It is a worldview. A servant doesn't wake up in the morning and say, what do I want to do? A servant says, what does my master want me to do? Being a servant of Allah is not some spiritual title. It's a psychology. It's a way of orienting yourself towards the world. When I go to make a decision, I don't make it based on what I want. I make it based on what Allah would want me to do and what decision would please Him. Because that is what is the truth. That would help serve my purpose. We need alignment all the way through. Sometimes we know our purpose, or we think we know our purpose. We verbally can give the right answer. Yet, why do you exist? I'm a Muslim. I exist to worship Allah, to serve Him. We say that verbally. We're not really convinced of that. So a lot of our goals then don't align. And then our daily behaviors don't align. And then we're really confused because part of us goes, no, but I know I'm a Muslim. I know what my purpose is, theoretically. But yeah, when I look at my life, I don't really see it reflecting that. Or my values. What are my values? Or maybe I know my values are aligned with the truth, but the way I live is not in alignment with those values. See, a person of integrity means what they say and says what they mean. A person of integrity does what they say. Why? Because there's alignment. What I say is equal to what I do. What I do is in alignment with what I believe. What I believe is in alignment with the truth. And alignment all across constitutes integrity. If someone says, I'm going to do this, and they genuinely intend to do it, but they don't do it, why? Why could that be? They know it's the right thing to do. They make an intention, they say, I'm going to do this, and they end up not doing it. What could be a reason? What forms the systems? You said the systems are the reason why they likely did not do what they said they would do. What constitutes the systems? Okay, daily habits, routines, behaviors, right? And I think there's more we'll talk about inshallah, but yeah. Addictions, potentially, yeah. Being addicted to something that pulls them in that direction, right? Because they're not integrated, their pain, which often is the source of their addictions. Yeah, anyone else? Because you know what I find really interesting is people get really frustrated when someone says, here's what I'm going to do, and they don't do it. They're like, but they said they're going to do it. As though the process to move from saying you're going to do it to doing it is really simple. It's not. It can be when you have alignment, but if you don't have alignment, you're fighting a battle. Think about it. You tell yourself, I'm not going to sin again, right? Because it's in alignment with your value. Your value is to not sin. And you make an intention, I'm not going to do it. And you know the difficulty, fighting off the temptation, resisting, being invited, trying to say no. It's hard, right? Like it's not easy. And people slip. They have moments of loneliness, moments of desperation, moments of weakness, moments of low self-worth, low self-esteem. They're feeling negative. They give in. They make that mistake. Absolutely. Not even aware of the war going on within. Lack of self-awareness completely. Beautiful. Yeah. Mm. Right, right. Yeah, discipline. Iman, you said Iman, like sometimes we're motivated spiritually, so it becomes easier to do the good that we say we're going to do and stay away from the evil. But then when the motivation's not there, then what? Right? Because you're not always motivated, so then you need discipline. SubhanAllah. There's a lot of things we're talking about here. Yeah. Mm. Right, right. Yeah, we have an idealized version of who we want to be, and then we have a daily version that we witness that we actually are. But with ourselves, we know that we intend good and we know that we want to do good, so we kind of allow ourselves to make mistakes and go, yeah, well, I messed that up, but I also intend to do good here. And we're kind of understanding of the complexity. But with other people, we just demand straightforwardness. Like, if you said this, you got to do it. There's no possibility that something might have come up, some difficulty. It's a flaw. Undeniably, it's a flaw. But the point is, people are not always aligned internally. And when we can understand this, wallahi, it enables you to be so much more patient. Because you just realize it's not that they don't want to do it. It could be a number of different things that interfered and prevented them from following through. One of the ways to think about this is, imagine if you just made a commitment to never lie verbally. You made a commitment. I'm never going to say anything that I know to not be true. What would happen? We won't speak, but okay. What else? You'll be tested. Tell me more. How? Right. And why do we hold back from speaking the truth? Well, yeah. If I speak the truth sometimes, what does it do? It might shame me. Did you pray Fajr this morning? And we're like, I gotta speak the truth, man. What do I say? I say no. Now I risk saying no, and people think, astaghfirullah, terrible Muslim. So we run into we'll just repeatedly run into scenarios where, because we're forced to speak the truth, we're going to look bad. Right? But if you committed to it, you know you can't change your words. You got to stick to what you say. Speak the truth. You'll be forced at some level to start changing your behaviors so that you don't have to lie, so that you're comfortable speaking the truth. If someone were to ask, I'm comfortable speaking the truth because I'm not ashamed of what the truth is. And so suddenly your behaviors fall in line. And like this, you can start building up. Now, that's a simplified understanding of how that works, but you can see why Islam places so much emphasis on speaking the truth. So if you've noticed, when we speak about integrity and authenticity, sacred authenticity we could call it, when we speak about sacred authenticity and integrity, have you noticed that there's no discussion of self-expression? We're not talking about self-expression. Authenticity in the meaning of self-expression. No. We're not talking about being true to oneself. It's not self-referential. The highest ideal is aligning ourselves with the truth and those higher moral ideals. Does everyone get what I'm saying so far? What integrity and alignment refers to from a more Islamic lens, which would be authenticity? But there's a major obstacle that makes it difficult to live truly authentic lives. So last week we spoke about what is authenticity, or rather, what are the common notions of authenticity. Up until now, I've tried to offer a more accurate understanding of authenticity from an Islamic lens. But the question still arises, why is it so difficult to be authentic? What are the obstacles to just being real and aligning ourselves with the truth? And I'm going to pinpoint one thing. There could be multiple, but I want to pinpoint arguably the most powerful and difficult obstacle to overcome, and that is status. Seeking status in life. Some have called it status anxiety. Now, the Prophet ﷺ in a hadith, Tirmidhi, he said, ما ذئبان جائعان أرسلا في غنم بأفسد لها من حرص المرء على المال والشرف لدينه. He said, if you were to take two hungry wolves and let them run and roam freely among a flock of sheep, they would be less destructive to those sheep than a person's greed for wealth and high status are destructive for their religion. Greed for wealth and high status is more destructive for a person's religion than two hungry wolves are to a flock of sheep. Ibrahim ibn Adham, he said, مَا صَدَقَ اللَّهَ مَنْ أَحَبَّ الشُّهْرَةِ. The one who loves fame can never be true to Allah. Can never be authentic in their relationship with Allah. In a simple way, how do we understand that? The core of spirituality and relationship with God is what? It's Allahu Akbar. It's glorifying Allah, declaring His greatness. What is fame all about? Declaring what? Your own greatness. And so you're at an odds, right? Now the word status, it's derived from the Latin root meaning standing. It's your standing. Where do you stand on the ladder? The hierarchy. What's your status? And it's not just about your legal or professional role, but it's the value, your value in the eyes of society. High status, why do we desire high status? Yeah. Validation, that's going to come up a lot now in today's conversation. Yeah. Respect. Safety, right. To impress parents. The parents, you said. We know what you're talking about. Yeah. Through respect, what do we feel we receive? Safety, right? Validation. We feel cared for. We feel like people like us. Yeah. Inherent value, right? That's important. We're going to talk about that. Yeah. It helps boost our low self-worth. So people reach out to us, they invite us, they show us attention, so we feel what? We feel important. We feel we have worth and significance. What would low status do, and why is it so despised? You feel what? Okay, right. Being in good standing ensures that you receive the support of the people around you, the collective around you. If you were ostracized, then you wouldn't receive all that support. Absolutely. Yeah. But if low status, what? A lot of rejection. Yeah. From high status. Right. Yeah. You feel invisible. Yeah. Right. People don't take you seriously in anything you do. Right. Right. All the opportunities that are missed, the just the way people talk and refer and look at them. It's painful. 100%. So now to understand why it is that it's such a deep need of human beings. It's something to really fight off. Let's take a step back and explore the human journey of life to kind of understand where status comes in. I want to say from the very beginning, Al-Imam al-Ghazali, he and other scholars make it very clear. In life, you need a certain amount of wealth and you need a certain amount of status and respect. And that's not blameworthy. In fact, everyone needs it in order to function in a society. If you don't have money, you're going to be begging. It's not a good thing. If you don't have status, you are not going to be treated well. You will struggle to offer anything to others because they don't even take you seriously. So when you seek status, a healthy level, there's nothing wrong with that. You seek wealth, a healthy level, nothing wrong with that. The Prophet ﷺ didn't say these two things themselves are the problem. He said it's hirsul mar. It's the greed. And usually there's a greed and like a desperate desire for something because it's to compensate for a perceived lack of something. And that's very unhealthy. See, let's kind of understand. When a child comes into this world, a child doesn't know how to evaluate the world. Evaluate in the meaning of assign value. Who is important in the room? I don't know. Everybody is a human. As a young baby, young child, you have to figure out who's important and who's not. Who do I respect? Who do I not respect? What is important in terms of material beings, or things rather? Is the camera worth the same as that cup? Is there a difference? If I break this and I break that, will there be similar consequences? A child's trying to figure out what the value of everything and everyone is, including themselves. They don't know what makes them good. They want to be good. Every human wants to be good, because being good means you're now accepted and you belong and you're celebrated and you're welcomed. And we want that. We want to belong. It's our social need as human beings. So now this child looks to the people around them for cues about what makes anyone worthy and respectable, anything valuable, or even what makes themselves respectable. And this is why we know that when you, example, speak to a child, you have to watch what you say. Your messaging could be positive, but what are you emphasizing in what you say? Are you emphasizing the results? Or are you emphasizing the effort? Are you emphasizing something superficial about their appearance? Or are you emphasizing something inner about their character? What are you emphasizing? Because indirectly you are shaping their value system. You are shaping their value system. And even not just in the positive comments about this is what's good about you or that, but especially in the negative criticism. Oh, you're not like this. How come you're not like that? How come you don't have what that person has? Look at so-and-so's child. Look at you. And the child begins to realize, or feel at least, that I am not worthy of these things. I'm not good enough. I don't have this. I'm like this. And, may Allah forgive us in our cultures where we think joking about things, it's just a joke. I don't mean it. We don't mean it. Or they don't mean it negatively. They're just kind of making a joke about their weight. Because it's cute. They're 4 years old, so we joke about their weight. And we kind of say, oh, they're a little chubby little 4-year-old. But that 4-year-old processes and registers that and develops a value system. And the child wants to be accepted. So when they see where they lack, they try to do more to be accepted there. Even if they don't like something, they'll do it to receive validation. And so we're programmed to seek validation. But people will only validate based on what conforms to their beliefs and their views. So, Alain de Botton, he writes, if our position on the ladder, the social hierarchy ladder, if our position on the ladder is a matter of such concern, it's because our self-conception is so dependent upon what others make of us. It's through their validation as a young child that we know we're enough. And it's through their rejection that we conclude that we're not enough. And we're young. We don't know better. Yeah. The latter? Oh, cultures and society, 100%. But that's literally what religion comes for. Islam comes for. To actually erase so many and just deconstruct so many of these ladders. Which is why Allah said, your status in the sight of God lies in your taqwa, in your heart. And no one knows. You don't know what's in my heart. I don't know what's in yours. And so none of us are really in a position to judge. The Prophet ﷺ said, at-taqwa ha-huna. Taqwa is here, and he pointed at his chest. It's incredible that Allah made the marker of religious status hidden so that nobody would then end up demeaning others. So when we start to, and it's important for us to reflect on today what we value and how that might have been shaped by what we were taught growing up about what's important. I've talked about this before, but I still remember someone telling me, there's an 8-year-old and, she's going on a diet. Wallah, he hurt my heart. 8 years old, going on a diet. Like it wasn't like there was any major health concerns. It was just, meeting some really unhealthy, unrealistic beauty standard. At the age of 8, she felt like she needed to do that to be enough. What a tragedy. And you can't just tell someone, well, just ignore what people feel and think about you. It's not that simple. There's a really famous experiment. Many of you will be familiar with it. It's known as the conformity experiment by Solomon Asch. It's where they have 4 participants who are part of the experiment. They're all in on it. They bring in a participant who comes, and they're being tested, and they're shown like 4 lines, and 3 of them are clearly the same length, and 1 of them is a little bit shorter. And so they start from the first person. Are any of them different from the others? And the first person who's in on the experiment goes, nope, they're all the same size. The participant's kind of like, what? Okay. Second person, they're all the same size. Third person, all the same size. Fourth person, fifth person, all the same size. And they come to the final person who's actually the one who's being tested. And they found that so many people just, how am I going to say that this one is different? I mean, it's clearly different, but then am I calling the 5 people here stupid and blind? What are they going to think about me if I'm one person disagreeing with all 5 of them? So many people say, yeah, they're all the same size. Their eyes know. Afterwards, they admit it. They're like, no, I knew it was different, that one line. Then why did you say that there was no difference? Well, I didn't want to offend the rest. I didn't want them to look at me and think, what's wrong with this person? 5 of us said one thing, and this one person has to be different. And that's a famous experiment highlighting what? The natural human desire to conform, to give in. Alain de Botton, he says, in life we have 2 major love stories. One is the famous romantic love story where we're searching for someone to love and to be a partner to. He said there's another one though. The other love story doesn't get much attention, and that is our seeking of love from the world. The desire that we have to be enough and worthy of people's attention. Because when we receive that love and that attention, we feel like we truly belong. Imam al-Ghazali, he said, everything we do goes back to status. Everything. Even if you want wealth, he said, you don't want wealth purely for itself. You want that wealth for status. Think about it. It's actually a profound point. Imagine you were super rich, but no one knew about it. You could never post about it. You could never tell anyone about it. We would feel at some level something's missing. Because we take great pride. We take great pride in letting people know about where I had dinner. Where I had dinner. I'm at that really nice restaurant. I take a picture. I post it. When I'm in Tim Hortons drive-thru, I do not take a picture. It's not a flex. But at that restaurant, I take a picture and I post it to let people know about my lifestyle, the level I'm living at. Because when I do that, it gets me status. To have a lot of money also earns me status. He said everything, even the pursuit of money, is for status, ultimately. Except those who've obviously really disciplined their souls and have realized that this is not what it's all about. By and large, though, Adam Smith, he many, many years later made the same observation. He said, the rich man glories in his riches because he feels that they naturally draw upon him the attention of the world. The poor man is ashamed of his poverty because he feels that it places him out of the sight of mankind. Our society in some ways is tyrannical in this regard. Why? In the past, if someone did not achieve high status, do you know what they would be called? They'd be called unfortunate. This person's unfortunate. They've suffered misfortunes. Why? Because people of the past believed that your accomplishments are not solely based on your abilities, They believe that your fortune, your nasib, right, what was written for you, plays a big role. See, the Greeks had a god that they called Lady Fortuna. And they believed that Lady Fortuna played a role in determining people's successes or failures. As Muslims, we also believe this from a divine lens. That there's an amount that you can make an effort, but it's not all you. It's not all you. Your ability to make an effort, your ability to have the opportunity, it's not up to you. To be born into the family with the IQ that you have, the motivation, the personality, all of that's not you. Yeah. Alignment. It always will come back to being aligned. I have these behaviors, excelling in my career, this, that. Fine. Align it. What are the goals? And you have to be honest. Through those goals, what values and what's the purpose? And we have to be honest, because sometimes we can lie to ourselves. I'm doing it for this, but I'm not. I say I'm doing it for that, but nothing suggests that I'm even making any effort to do that. So there's a lot of alignment needed and honesty. Today in the world that we occupy, you know what our culture teaches us? It teaches us that our worth is closely tied to our achievements and wins. Why? Because you're responsible for that. Which is why when someone hasn't accomplished much, we will call them a loser. It's very different than unfortunate. You're a loser. It's like life is a race. And you win or lose based solely on your performance. So when you don't meet up to the standard, you don't meet the standards, you're a loser. Otherwise, you're a winner. There's no factoring in divine intervention. There's no factoring in forces beyond your control. And so we suffer from a status anxiety. The constant need to conform to society's ideals of success, lest we be stripped of dignity and respect. It's not simply a fear of poverty. It's a fear of humiliation and exclusion and not being invited to different functions and events. We are not made to feel that we belong. And so as we grow up, ideals are imposed upon us by our families. You know, it's really interesting. The ideals imposed upon us are not necessarily from our parents. It may be that our parents contributed to making us feel that our worth was in something superficial, something that's not really truly in alignment with the truth. Maybe it was our parents. You know, it's a really interesting one. Sometimes parents show so much love to their kids. You're perfect how you are. You're beautiful. You're this. This kid grows up with a lot of self-esteem, mashallah, a lot of love. And then they go to school, and nobody in school gives them that attention and that respect and that acceptance. And they come home, and they tell their mom, no, they said I looked funny. It's like, no, you don't. No, we've been telling you from day one, you're beautiful as you are. No, but like that's not what so-and-so said. The wider society, when there's a lack of alignment in validation. That there's validation. It means I'm acceptable at home, but I'm not acceptable at school because I didn't receive validation there. You know, it's probably one of the most incredible that some have mentioned. Incredible in the sense of like you won't think about it usually. Is learning or having values imposed on you vicariously. Imagine as a young child, you see your mother belittled for being a housewife. You're not belittled, not you, because you're just a young girl or a young boy. But as you grow up in your value system, a housewife is here. You go somewhere with your father, and when he shares what he does for work, people kind of make a face, and you notice it. And you go, Got to make sure that I never become that, like my dad. It wasn't imposed on you, but vicariously through seeing how others are treated, especially those close to you. You made a commitment to never meet that standard. You're going to rise above. And this is really interesting to understand. So we might grow up that way, but we have a duty when we get to a certain age to step back and say, wait, these are all the values that were imposed on me. But what's the truth? The power of truth is the only thing that will give you the confidence and the strength to say no to all of these other ideas. Any other opinion is just an opinion against this opinion. Why would any one opinion triumph over the other? Think about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When he stood firm against all of his people, his uncle, his family, his neighbors, his closest people. And they made him, the gaslighting, being called, you're this, you're that, you're guilty of this. Where does the strength come from to stand firm and say no? You could say what you want, but I know what the truth is. It's the truth. It's a commitment to the truth. You don't have to like me, but you're not liking me is okay because I know I'm committed to the truth, and you're not. You don't have to agree with me. You don't have to agree with my decisions. But what gives me the confidence is knowing that I'm following the truth, and tomorrow if I die, I'm comfortable standing before God. There's incredible strength in that. Incredible strength. But this working for that alignment. So far, we've been brought up a certain way with certain values imposed. And you're not responsible for that. You were impressionable. You took it on because that's all you could do. But now you are accountable and responsible for how you choose to live your life because you're an adult. And you can go back and evaluate and compare it to the truth and say, really, is this where I need to place my worth? Even if you were brought up with Islamic values, if you haven't owned them, but you merely adopted them, they won't contain the same strength. Martin Heidegger, he said the difference between authenticity and inauthenticity, he said, it's in whether you simply accept a routine version of your tradition, in our case Islam, or whether you go back to its very foundations, bases, its roots, and you make a resolute decision to commit yourself to it. He says if you haven't gone back and committed yourself to it, you're not authentic. That's Heidegger. You're still following what you were told. He said, but when you make a commitment to it because you are convinced, because you've investigated it, then truly you're being authentic in your adherence to your tradition. And so we have to stop here for Salah, but I'll start, inshallah, not next week, but the following week, some of the ways that we can try to address this status anxiety. A few things, I'll just run through them. I won't explain them, but I'll run through them. The first is, one does need to really investigate the roots of why I have placed my value in whatever I have placed my value in. Number two, you have to realize that you'll never make everybody happy, and you have to come to terms with this. It's just a matter of choosing who's going to be unhappy. You can never make everybody happy. And then another point I'm going to talk about, inshallah, next time is to be with people of integrity and alignment so that you're conforming to the pressure of people who are aligned with the truth. Yeah, there's more, inshallah, but we'll stop here. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us tawfiq to really become people of integrity, people of alignment, inwards and outwards, and ultimately alignment with the truth. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Jazakumullahu khairan to all of you. Next week, Monday, we won't have Thrive. It's Labor Day holiday, so the center will be closed, or the offices at least. But the following Monday, inshallah, we'll continue then. We'll see you then. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.